I think DPS is the hardest role.
Like, I'm so sick and tired of people who will fight tooth and nail for their tank to live. Let me die!
I think tank, personally, is the most mentally taxing role, making it harder to climb because your mental will be worse.
Welcome back to Overthink, the game show where I ask contestants a series of Overwatch hot takes to see where they stand. Feel free to play along in the comments to let me know what your opinions are on these hot takes. And if you'd like to actually be on an episode, go ahead and sign up in my Discord. I host these live on my Twitch channel most Sundays, so please go follow me on there to catch a show live. And lastly, please don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more content like this. Tank is the hardest role.
I think personally that tank is the hardest role to play because if you take up the biggest hitbox and it's your job to take focus in a fight or lead the fight, most people are going to try to shoot you. And your supports aren't always going to have the tools equipped to back you up on that. And the stress of that alone kind of makes it a difficult job.
Tank not only has to account for its own abilities, its own cooldowns, but also to track everyone else's cooldowns. If I'm a tank, I need to know if my Ana has her nade or sleep dart before going in. I need to try and bet on whether or not my character is going to be using Suzu on me and stuff like that. Tracking not just myself and what I'm doing, but also what my teammates are doing constantly.
I think that, like, at the highest level, 5v5, when you know your team, like Overwatch League, I think all roles are genuinely the same difficulty, but in ladder, people just like to blow up the tank every fight. If we blow up the tank, we can win. So I think in ladder, tank is a little bit more difficult than the other roles, just because people like to focus them for the easy fight wins.
When it comes to actually putting the skills that you learn of playing tank, of like keeping track of cooldowns and stuff like that, I think that stuff is definitely difficult, but the skill itself, applying it, isn't the most difficult thing ever. The biggest challenge when it comes to tank being difficult is actually learning these skills, because a lot of these are very invisible skills, like for example, tracking cooldowns. I know I said that before, but whatever. Because you don't see your enemies or teammates' timers for their own abilities, and also positioning. That's another thing. You do see where you are and where they are, but I don't think a lot of people think about it necessarily. And so I think it's definitely the hardest to learn when it comes to the hardest to like applying the skills to be the best at what you are doing. I agree with the idea that they are all relatively similar, and if one is more difficult, it's only slightly more. But I do definitely think tank is the hardest to learn by far.
Recently in Overwatch 2, because of the 5v5 format, has been so unbelievably buffed. You can make it feels like you can make a million mistakes, and you can just live. And you do kind of just determine everything. I think DPS is the hardest role, but I think support's easier than tank.
I do agree with what Titanic said, but I want to add on to it. There's also the other skills. I would say that tank mentally, maybe so, but like out of aim, tank has, in my opinion, easier, bigger projectiles to hit enemies with, so their aim is much easier than other roles. That's also with the positioning, because if you position badly with DPS, bang, you're dead. Oh, you play bad positioning, boom, you get dived as a support. But if you play bad positioning with tank and they don't focus you at all, you can just get so much out of you. If they don't focus you, but if they focus you, you can still get out, because how many buffs they were given for this format, because it's needed. They basically imitate Titan bosses. The tank is the Titan, while your DPS is the pressures, and the supports are like the anchors. DPS is the hardest role, I agree with that.
I'd say tank isn't the hardest role, mostly because of their high HP pool. I feel like what they were saying earlier as well, where it's a lot harder more so to punish a tank that's out of position unless you and your team are heavily coordinated, which almost never really happens unless you're in really higher ranks. And even me, as somebody who's in Diamond, it's really hard to find people who are consistently trying to punish and force out tanks. And almost every single tank nowadays, except for a few exceptions, has some kind of form of mobility or damage mitigation that's able to help them alleviate their mistakes. Versus supports, they're always constantly getting shot at, constantly getting targeted. Everybody knows to kill the support first, or else tank doesn't die.
A lot of tank deaths are due to their bad positioning and not due to their supports.
I have opinions on this. as a tank, I know I just defended y'all and said your role is hard, but you also have the most health and the most resources to get behind that dang corner. And there have been so many times where, as a tank, they aren't paying attention to where their support is positioned, so they're not only not behind cover, but they're not in the LOS of their support, and then they blame me for not healing them. I'm sorry, you have to have more awareness than that if you're going to play tank.
If any of my besties, particularly my support besties, are watching this, I'd like to humbly apologize to you and take responsibility for the amount of times I have gone face first as Orisa into the enemy team, thinking that my supports are behind me, when in fact they are not and are miles away. I take full accountability, and it happened a lot, and I think it's honestly because, particularly in 5v5, you do have a lot of HP, and even like Orisa, for example, has 2 abilities to mitigate damage. It almost encourages you to be like, oh, I'm unstoppable, I'm unkillable, when in fact you are killable and stoppable. I don't know how they could fix that, but like sometimes I wish I could have rear view mirrors, you know, like while playing tank. I've said my piece.
As somebody who's tried and failed and refused to further play tank, I think a lot of it comes specifically because when you play tank, you have to balance playing aggressive with playing safe. And as a support player, I recognize that. And part of the responsibility falls on me to put myself in a position to be able to support my tank when they want to play aggressive, but 9 times out of 10, I can put myself in the best position possible, and my tank will still run into the enemy team around the corner and die and fall over. And that is the tank's fault, not the support's fault. And I have been yelled at so many times as a support player, why weren't you healing me? Why weren't you healing me? When every single resource I had went into supporting my tank. And I think tanks need to recognize that.
They dictate where they can go, where they can't go, and Ana can sleep and Ana can nade. You can't do anything. Immortality field, there's Suzu, there's like Zenyatta ult, Discord orb is huge. They keep them on a leash, but at the same time, you have to be smart. You have so much stats and you're so crazy in 5v5, but you need to still be aware, to be smart. The supports enable and disable. Overplaying the game and getting better, and sometimes getting worse, I've kind of realized that it's in the middle. There's some things that you can do, some things that you can't do. I don't really think, for the most part, there's one party to blame.
I think a lot of tank deaths aren't actually a result of like overextending. While of course that does happen, to say the majority of deaths, I think that's wrong. I think a lot of the times, like we said earlier, tanks are on a tether of supports, and it is up to the support player to recognize when the tank is going in and is putting pressure in like that, and to just make a gameplay adjustment around that. Most supports have the mobility to keep up with the tank player for at least for a long enough time period to catch up, or they have the range to do so through that anyway. And I do have personally the experience of, I'm very active in VC. If my tank is turning around a corner and I can't see them, I tell them that, and usually they back up. It's not that hard to just say, hey, I can't see you, and then they'll back up. I don't have a problem with it most of the times in my games.
So I think actually there's an opposite problem happening. I don't think tanks are too aggressive. I think supports are too passive. So we just agreed, the majority of the lobby just agreed tank is the hardest role to play. That means they have the best players if they're still out here grinding it. Let them cook. I get it. Okay, I play a lot of Ana. It's easy. You hang a mile back, you save nade for yourself, you save sleep for anyone diving you. But if your tank charges in there, give them nano, give them nade, even throw your sleep, see if you hit someone. If you give them the tools to do what they need to do, they will cook. And you might die if you follow them. There's a very good chance you'll die. And I get, we all care about stats. Like us support players, we gotta stop caring about, I have the lowest deaths on the team. Because who are you letting die to get that stat? Let them cook. I believe in our tanks if we just give them a little bit of juice.
You had a lot of people shaking their head while you were speaking. Do any of the head shakers want to chime in as to why?
Yeah, when you give a take an inch, you give them a mile, and you can be as aggressive as you want as a support, and they'll still turn around and say, why are you frontlining? You should be healing. As a Moira player, I know I do the right amount of damage, but the tank does not agree.
This is Morlul, and as the Ana player, I'd like to speak up specifically because you mentioned that you save nade for yourself and you save sleep for dives. That is actually kind of the incorrect way to play Ana. Your kit enables your team. You should be nading the enemy team. Your positioning and the way that you play with your team is what's going to keep you up. You should not be saving your abilities for yourself. I agree with that. But I also disagree with the whole keeping the tank on a leash thing. That is not it at all. Tanks
Why
leash
is that not it?
themselves. Tanks leash themselves. They put themselves in either I'm depending on my support or I'm screwed. If you are paying attention as a tank and you recognize that there is a Mei on the enemy team, you're going to wait for wall to come out before you dive. Otherwise, your support can be in the best position possible to support you, but you screwed yourself. That's putting yourself on a leash, not your support.
Is there
Okay.
anybody that would like to change their stance after hearing others speak?
So my main reasoning is I think there are situations where support players they just kind of want to play passive for a whole game, and if you start going aggressive, they will get upset at you, but they don't feel like extending towards you.
Support is the most blamed role.
As a support player, specifically somebody who will play Ana and Mercy most of the time, the amount of blame that is brought on supports. Why didn't you save this ability for me? Why didn't you save Nano from my blade? Why aren't you positioned here with me? I'm on a flank. Why didn't you support me? Hey, why are you healing the tank and not me? I'm getting the most kills. Or even just, why are you playing that character? It's a useless character. The amount of blame that I see thrown on supports, and I'm not saying that tanks don't get blamed. As a support player, I have definitely been like, my tank's not playing aggressive enough, or my tank is just inting. Like, that's kind of hand in hand with playing tank. But I feel like just the hate that support gets, not just for being support, but also because it is a mostly like women and LGBT dominantly like field. A lot of people expect it to be a woman or like a gay person playing support, and it just adds on the amount of like hate and blame that are added.
So I only somewhat agree, because like I feel like once you get into the game, support is really easy to stat pad. So no one's gonna be like, oh my god, you have like very low healing, you're throwing. Like there's no like scoreboard shenanigans going on that I see a lot of like tank and DPS players get mad about. But supports by far have the most toxicity at hero select. I mean, we've all seen it. You load into a game, select hero bans, someone says preferred hero Mercy, and then the entire team just bans them. Like, I've seen people want to ban Hog, the tank player says, I want to play Hog, let me cook, and they go, okay. But I have seen more toxicity than any other role at the hero ban screen towards support players. So I don't know if they overall get the most hate, but I definitely agree there's a lot of hatred there, some and somewhat.
When you look over the history of Overwatch, it was definitely more geared towards support and tank players being blamed in general. But as time has progressed and the roles have become more even in player base, so the more toxic people join support, tank, and all that stuff, I argue that, well, and especially if you look right now, which role has the longest queue times? Supports easily have the longest queue times when they are solo queuing. And I genuinely believe at this point, support has the largest player base currently. And so I argue that it is more likely for I'm not trying to say the supports won't get blamed at all, but I just think people will blame each other kind of evenly, you know? Like, it's not like this role is like overwhelmingly more blamed than the other, you know? It's just the likelihood of, you know, I don't have any more to say.
I mostly put my my vote in neutral because I feel like in general the player base is very toxic. Tank, support, DPS, whatever. I feel like everybody's trying to blame just whoever they can besides themselves. Everybody has, especially I'll say this here, supports have the biggest ego ever. They're always the ones who have the most to say whenever the fingers are pointed at them. So that's why. And then tank as well is also just a hard role in terms of cooldowns.
Every single meta in this game that was overwhelmingly famous or infamous is dictated by supports. Goats was Brig. Moth meta was Mercy. Double shield, people say it's the shields. It was Bap and Brig keeping everything together. You cannot play the game without supports. You can play the game without a tank. If your tank is dead, and if you have a Reaper or something, they can hold the corner, they can hold the space. Tanks hold space with their abilities, extended pressure at a certain angle that is advantageous to your team. That is all that tank is. Supports, I don't think supports gets blamed the most. In my games, honestly, it's DPS. I don't know what it is. There's always a random DPS that has like 8 times the deaths as everyone else. It's hilarious. I don't see tank get blamed as much as people say.
Sorry,
It's really
sorry, I
Please
just
don't
got
interrupt
back
each
in.
other.
That was me. That was me.
I think that the things that supports get, the criticism they get, are for the most part justified because of how much they dictate the game. The healing relieves the pressure, and the things that make the pressure can't do it as well. They don't have a support that heals right, or that does their job properly. Supports really are the bottom of the pyramid. It's a pyramid of what happens, and tanks are honestly the small part at the top. The only reason why it feels so important is because there's only one of them in 5v5. Supports are the foundation.
So I'm hearing someone disagree because I want to point out that I think Mercy in this case is a statistical outlier for supports. I think I agree that Mercy gets a lot of harassment, but when you start talking about other supports outside of her, I think it significantly goes down. I don't play Mercy. I very rarely get people complaining about me. And I think I agree somewhat where with Dumo behind me here, where supports are very, very important. And I don't think a lot of people point out how much they're like what's going on with them very often. Very rarely do I hear people complain about like, oh, our supports are dying too much. A lot of times the response is just, hey, you should be peeling for them. I think I can peel for myself. I can peel for my other support. That's our job to keep ourselves alive, not someone else's job. And I hate the implication that we cannot defend ourselves. And I think a lot of people end up putting the blame and the supports are underperforming to the rest of the team. And that isn't necessarily always the case. I think it's rarely the case. Supports have more than enough tools to fight for themselves, to deal with things themselves. They can't really complain and point fingers at someone else.
Support should be more willing to take risks if it means keeping the tank alive.
As a Moira player, I love taking a good risk. Sometimes, as Moira, you can pump a bunch of healing into your, but as a resource-dependent healer who has to do damage to keep those resources up, sometimes it's more good to go into that backline and find out who's causing the issue for your tank and eliminate them, rather than just pumping all of your resources into the tank. And it typically works out more than just being a heal bot.
I just want to say that like 2 hot takes ago, when I said let tanks cook and everyone was shaking their head, this is the exact same hot take that I was agreeing with earlier of like support players play it too safe, they should let tanks cook, and all of you shook your heads, and now the thing has flipped. I just wanted to point that out.
I feel like my kind of stupid rule is if I'm feeding, my team should feed with me and we'll win. It's just so much more fun. I think it's more fun for everyone instead of making them heal bot or they can't take angles, they can't do damage, they're just spamming me while I'm taking a bunch of damage, basically doing nothing.
I kind of always thought that support players should try and save who they can, but also at the same time, yes, support players should take risks to keep their tanks alive, but they also shouldn't neglect the rest of their team.
So there was this last hot take was saying, oh, tanks are too aggressive. I say that yes, the supports need to play know how to position, but if that causes their position to get them killed and ultimately lose the fight, then what's the point of being risky? That's the question. Or sometimes it's better to be safe to, help your DPS. And what if your DPS was the reason you won? If your DPS is the carry, potentially, in a fight instead of your tank? Why would you risk for your tank when your DPS will get you the win instead? That's why I'm mainly in somewhat disagree. Yeah, sometimes tanks go too aggressive. And that's why Life Weaver was made. So Life Weaver was made specifically to stop these over-aggressive tanks.
One of the main reasons why I chose disagree was not because I play Mercy, but mostly because I think as a tank, obviously there are 2 sides of the spectrum. You can be a high resource demanding tank where you're asking for all the healing, all the pocket, and you can be low resource and be low maintenance. And if I have to waste my cooldowns and my resources to go in there and save you from overextending, I think that's more feeding than anything, because you as a tank should have the responsibility of turning around and looking at where your team is, if your team's ready to go in with you, instead of just going in and expecting your supports to come in and save you.
With all that being said, I do have a little question. First, just for my support players. If you have ever purposely let somebody on your team die just to kind of preserve your own like death stat, jump up and down. Okay. All right.
I was gonna say, not for like the death stat, but I'll let somebody die if I think it'll like keep us winning.
Yeah,
like,
or if they're being annoying.
if me staying alive gets us a better win, I will absolutely let someone else die.
I guess my question was more so like in a selfish way. Like, have you guys ever? Oh, Amity's like, fuck yeah, I have, absolutely.
Yeah, I've let somebody die to kill someone else. Like, I've done it. I wouldn't do it to save myself, but I'll usually do it to kill someone.
Now, for everybody, even our tank players, if you guys have ever seen your support purposely like leave a fight early just to preserve a death stat or whatever, like for kind of like a selfish reason, jump up and down. Okay. Who do we think is the biggest culprit for that, support player wise?
Oh, I'm so ready for this. I think out of all support, I don't know why this support does it a lot. I think it's Mercies. I don't know why. I've seen Mercies just run away to Nadia. Not a lot of Mercy players do this as much anymore. I'm not saying, oh, every Mercy does this. For my games a lot, I've seen Mercies do it the most.
Dude, the way Mercy freaking tweaked the fuck out when you said that behind you was so funny. Do you disagree with that, Idyllic? You have something to say back there?
Yes, I think I will throw my other supports under the bus. I think it's always Weavers who are doing that, okay? Weavers are the ones who always have to play back the most, okay? They're the ones who's always trying to, like, get into a good distance to grip, and I think that's just, like, fundamentally, like, wrong, but they're always the ones leaving first, okay? Don't speak wrong on my name!
All right, so
Okay,
Mercy's like,
hold
on. Mercy really just said, I'm passing the phone to a bitch-ass Weaver who does this. That's J-Tick over there. I know you're a Weaver player and you were shaking your head. J-Tick, what do you have to say to that?
Well, I'm not going to deny that is a thing that happens. When I was a Weaver player, because I'm now a tank player because I became my friend's group's designated tank, but when I was a Weaver player, when I was just a support player in general, there was something I would say to myself, and that phrase is, and I still stand by this, is I can't heal stupid. If you're being stupid, and I mean stupid, and running in face first, and you're like, oh, I'll be fine. Like, I only have one grip. I will use it, but then when it's used, like, I can't do it again. I'm gonna run away because you're losing the fight for us. Like, I understand you think I can just pull you back whenever. No. You need to keep track of that as well. I will tell you when I don't have it, but please, I'm sick of this nonsense. As a recently new tank player, I love keeping track of my teammates' cooldowns. I love my support. I will kneel to them. I will feed them. I will do anything I want. But oh my gosh, I love supports.
So I am currently an Ana Brigand Life Weaver player. And when I play Life Weaver, I'm the exact opposite feeling. I say, go all in. I'm playing Life Weaver. I can get you out. In fact, I have a penchant for using my pull to pull someone into even more offensive situations consistently. Because I have the health bar to do it. I can go in. I have a bunch of health. I have a dash. I have platform. I'm just going to go all in. I don't care. I have a 130 DPS weapon. Let's do it. Just go all in. I'll run away. Of course, Mercy's going to be going running away all the time. Her kit is entirely built around it.
So, gamers, with all that being said, I kind of got us off topic a tiny bit, but is there anybody that would like to change their stance after hearing others speak? If so, go ahead and move now.
As I'm J-Chick speaking, I'm going to kind of repeat myself for what I said earlier of the idea I can't heal stupid, but I will say, like, I kind of interpreted the initial question a bit differently. I kind of more so thought of it just taking risks in general with your tank. I love that crap. Also, you can't just risk everything to save your tank because then you're just going to feed ult charge. They're going to get ults constantly. And ults are important to this game because, you know, they're ultimate abilities. And so it just leads to more people getting angry, more ults being used by the enemy team, and then your team doesn't know what is going on because what's happening is so invisible. You kind of throw the game to an extent without you even knowing. Like, I'm so sick and tired of people who will fight tooth and nail for their tank to live. Let me die! Oh my gosh.
Just to add on to the tank dying thing, I honestly think just letting somebody die quicker and get into the fight faster instead of staggering with them is it's better for setting up for the next fight And then as well, if I'm over here like yellow beaming a tank and trying to keep them alive, that gives the other DPS like more ult charge instead of just letting them die fast and then, you know.
It's easier to climb as a support player than it is to climb as a tank player.
Like, what is there to say? Supports are so versatile, they can slot into any kind of team comp, any type of role in the team. So it's a lot easier to climb as a support because you can luck out and get really good teammates where you don't have to put that much effort into a game. And sometimes there are games where you have to carry, but I think support is a role that gives you all the tools to carry more so than other roles.
I guess to start, I'm currently silver 5 in tank and going to somewhere around gold 3 in support, purely because it's just easier to carry games as a support than it is as a tank. I've thought that for a while.
Oh, I'm so ready for this one. So, first, I think tank, personally, is the most mentally taxing role, making it harder to climb because your mental will be worse. One of them. 2, support. I played tiny bit of support and somehow made it higher than my peak in tank ever in my first shot, which is pretty insane. Like, I think it's also, some people think it's like tank is easier, some people think it's support is easier, but I think most people think it's support that's easier because supports have more capabilities. They're the anchor of a team after all. They're the main thing that keeps it still, working well. The reason why I'm not fully in agree is, like I said, some people might just think tank is easier. But for me, support has always been easier and will always be easier.
I think that like X role is easier to climb is kind of silly because the entire lobby gets better the higher you go. Like I played competitively with a college team for a few years, and in one tournament we somehow got matched against a team with 3 ex Overwatch League players. I thought I had good positioning as Ana. I thought I could reliably hit sleeps as Ana. Not against these top 500 Genji and Tracer players. So like, I don't think, so like support's easier to climb is implying that if a support player's true skill is plat, they might make it to Diamond or Masters. I think if that genuinely happened, then Diamond and Masters DPS players would be eating easy, but they're not. The entire skill of the lobby increases. So like, if you're not cut out for that rank, other players will recognize that and exploit that.
So I'm here to somewhat disagree. I think because the way I view it is that when you're playing support, it's very, well, there's a point where like you can't get carried by your teammates. I think when it comes to playing tank is so difficult to climb with because you can, I'm trying to figure out how to put the words in my mouth. So the way I'm viewing it is that I'm not a tank player. When I do play tank, I'm often playing dive. And so I'm so reliant on my team picking the right comp exactly for me when I'm playing tank. But they're more willing to do that. I feel like when you're playing tank, people are willing to adapt themselves around you very, very easily. People will ban around you. When I'm playing Winston, I get Bastion bans super easily. Whereas if I'm playing support, people don't really need to care. I don't know what I'm saying here, where I'm going with this. I just had an easier time climbing with tank than I do with support. With support, I was hard to like diamond for a long time, and the first time any role on my account hit masters with tank was because all I had to do was just keep in mind what I'm doing, go for my goals, and just play well and keep track of what my team is doing, which I could do. Whereas on support, I'm relying on other people getting value for me.
I'm gonna just get this out of the way. In my opinion, I think tank is the easiest role to climb. Maybe it's just because I play Doom. In Doom, you have more options than another tank. But tanks, they have so much influence in the map and in-game because it's just one of them there. You have to do the job of 2 in 1. You can just live because just the innate fear that people have of you, because a tank it should, in design, have predictable cycles of a certain range of high pressure. Ryan's hammer melts, but it's very small range. Stuff like that, like Sigma's left click, it has more range, but it's determined, consistent pressure. That is just a range of death, and all you have to do really is just live as tank. You really don't even have to do that much, unless you're playing, honestly, maybe Doom. I feel it's just really easier. Like other roles, to climb consistently, it feels like you have to be more consistently getting value than a tank. Tanks, you don't have to do as much, and you're just getting value. That's honestly how I feel.
Teams should usually pick their heroes that they play around their tank.
I fully agree with this just because I used to play on a team and I was stuck in Lucio jail for the longest time. I'd play Lucio all the time, and it is so hard, especially if your tank is playing something like Ryan or Orisa, to do anything if you have maybe like a Mercy Moira or a Brig Mercy. Like there's nothing that you can do to help assist your tank engage and disengage, and that is honestly just throwing in and of itself.
So I'm here in some degree because I, like them, I believe that like if you play the support that works well with your tank, you're more likely to win. You're more likely to make your tank experience better and like amplify their effect. However, not everybody plays every support well, I should say. I'd rather have a very competent Mercy player than an incompetent Lucio player if I'm playing Ryan. So make the swaps to whatever your tank is playing to complement their gameplay style there, but like within reason. If you can't play a character, you can't play them. So there's no point. I'd rather be on someone that you can play.
I don't know that it really matters too much if you pick your team based on your tank. I feel like it really depends on if you have a good tank or not. Because if you have a bad tank, basing your team around that tank isn't going to go well. It really depends.
I always try to make games easier for my tank, just because if my tank is in the best environment possible, then they're more likely to succeed. But if I'm having a bad aim day, I cannot play a character that's going to have good aim. So I'm going to play what's going to make me play the best so that I can support my team the best. And I think a lot of people need to recognize that fact. Like if I am playing Kiri and my team's doing great, but we're going up against a Hog or a Mauga and the other person doesn't know how to play Ana, then I'm gonna swap Ana, even if that's not what my tank needs. Like if my tank needs a Kiri to go in and dive, like if I've got a Doom tank and Kiri's the best person, but the other tank's rolling my team, I have to do what's best for that, not what's best for my tank.
So I disagree because of math. If the tank wants to play dive, but the supports want to play poke, 2 people want to play poke, 1 person wants to play dive, dude, just go Sigma, okay? There's 1 tank on every team. If the rest of your team wants to play something else, you are 1 person, you have more health, your vote does not matter more. Just swap.
Is there anybody that would like to change their stance after hearing other people speak?
I think that everybody should just play who they want to play. For the most part, it works. But I will say this, that supports, as I said, they are the foundation. They determine what you should play more than other people. That does not mean that you should swap in ranked or in ladder. Most of the time you can get away with it unless you're like running something crazy like Moira BAP and everyone else is going full dive, then or your tank's going full dive or something. It's hard to get incompatibility there in most circumstances. I don't think anybody should be swapping for anybody most of the time.
Supports are greedy with their abilities.
A couple hot takes ago, it all ties back. My opinions haven't changed. At the very beginning, I said, hey, I think if your tank is going in all gas, no brakes, just go with them, let them cook. I still think it here. I see too many Anas. I'm gonna save sleep in case I get dove. I'm gonna save nade to heal myself. Too many BAPs. Like we all joke, BAP has 3 health bars. No, BAP should have 1. Use your other health bars to help your team. Kiris, they save Suzu for yourself. You don't need Suzu, just TP out if you get low. So I really think a lot of support players, they care way too much about that death stat, like I was saying earlier.
Why I'm here is because I kind of used my neutral earlier. I sway more towards agree because it really does depend on the rank, because especially in lower ranks, you know, you get people who are constantly not even like trying to use their abilities. Like you have someone who will have ult the entire fight and just never use it, and it's so frustrating. But then again, you also have people who are wasting abilities, so it really just depends on who's playing. But I do agree sometimes that some people will not enable their team, especially like if I have nano and I know that my tank is trying to go in, trying to make a play, I'm not just gonna sit there and try to like LOS them. I'm gonna go and do nano so that I can go look at nade their backline instead.
So I kind of sit completely in the middle here, where I think a lot of supports do need to be a little bit more greedy with their abilities. Like I agreed earlier that support should be pushing in, that you should be going in as far as you can. And to do that, you need to be somewhat selfish with some of your cooldowns, where as an Ana, I might save sleep just for myself, just because I need to use nade to anti someone else. However, at the same time, if you have your cooldowns, use them. Right? There's no reason to hold on to a Baptiste window. Even if you're the only person who will benefit from it, pop that window for yourself and greed. But again, you have to stay alive. A dead support isn't doing anything. So use your cooldowns for yourself, but try to get as much greed as you can.
If you are a support player and you're being greedy with your abilities, you are playing support wrong, in my opinion. And I stand by it. And I see it reflected in a lot of the supports that I get in games with me. They aren't saving their abilities for themselves, they're saving it for the enemy team. If there is a Cassidy on the enemy team and the Ana on my team has sleep, they're saving the sleep for the ulting Cassidy or the ulting Sigma. If a Kiri is on my team, they're saving Suzu for Ana Nade or Junker Queen ult. I very rarely see supports using abilities on themselves unless it is to keep themselves up so they can keep the tank up.
Greedy? Never in my life. First of all, I play Moira. Moira is a cooldown dependent hero. You always need to be using her cooldowns because you should be constantly rotating to where you're needed in the fight, and your orbs keep up your resources. So I could never be greedy while playing her. With Lifeweaver, I guess you could be a bit hasty with using your pull, but you want to save someone and you have the ability to save someone, you do it.
I argue supports aren't greedy enough. Kirkos, look for those headshots. Anas, look for those antis and those ulting Cassidys. Always look to play aggressive. I have seen so many, and I will say, when I was a support player, I was victim to this, who play so passive. Grow a pair of ovaries and push in. Oh my gosh. Use your abilities to support the fight. Your abilities can turn the tide of a fight, and you don't use them. You only use them to support yourself sometimes. I'm sick of it. Be more greedy. Get those. You want kills? Get them. Anti-people. Headshots. Oh my gosh. Bat players. If I swear, if I see another bat player use window for his team instead of himself to kill people, I'm gonna scream. I'm gonna do it. Like, I've had it up to here with these, where is your passion?
Is there anybody that would like to change their stance after hearing others speak?
Honestly, I'm gonna tell you right now, Amity, I think your argument convinced me a lot. Yes, go with your tank. But I think that DPS should do it more, and I don't think that's a controversial take. Shaq and Kobe, you should use your abilities to be aggressive. And honestly, thinking about it, JTech, you might be on the wrong side, because what you're saying follows, I feel like, the path of less greedy is to more aggressive instead of saving people or using it just to save yourself.
Well, what I'm saying is, people, maybe I just interpret it greedy as differently, because I see greedy as looking for extra antis or for cheeky headshots and stuff like that on Kiriko. I never see support player, well, I do, my friends do, I love my friends, but I've seen so many on the ranked ladder who just don't. So yeah, I am disagreeing with the idea that support players are greedy by my own definition of what greedy is, because I just interpreted the question differently. And so I say they're not greedy enough.
The thing is, I believe you were right. The quickest way to get feedback, which is to improve, is to be aggressive. So going in not being greedy by not holding it just for yourself or being scared or whatever I feel like is the right way to play. So I agree with you. I just think that your interpretation just puts you on a different side. But I do think you're right.
Partially because of the argument of JTech and Minty, because when you started talking about Moira, I realized Moira is a support who's entirely greed. Your cooldowns are something you can just throw out greedily as possible. The entire character is about greeding as much as you can and getting out alive. And there's other supports like that too, like Ana. When you're holding on sleep to take out an ultimate, that's greeding your sleep, because you're not trying to save it for defensive usage. You're trying to say, hey, I'm gonna cancel your ult, I know you're gonna go for it. That kind of stuff. That's greeding. I'm greeding with my abilities all the time. I very rarely don't want to just hold on to my stuff.
If I may,
without reason.
I interpreted greedy as in when a support is holding on to their cooldowns and they don't want to use their cooldowns, or they're overthinking with their cooldowns. That's how I interpreted it. The opposite of greed in that instance is like actually using your cooldowns off cooldowns. You're not afraid of giving them up. You're not afraid of using them. You're actually doing it constantly.
Yeah, I think there are two minds here. There's definitely two minds here, where there's greed in the sense of you're trying to get your cooldowns out as often as possible, and greed in terms of you're saving your cooldowns for just yourself so that you can keep yourself, guarantee your own survival. from my head, greed is getting as much value out of each cooldown as possible and using it as often as possible.
I think support itself is an inherently selfless role because you're constantly trying to keep your other supports alive, and the word greedy itself is pretty negative. It has a negative connotation, so more so greed in the sense of it being a detriment to your team, and I think support in itself is pretty selfless.
Subscribe to ChristalRaine.
To the 1, to the 1, to the 3. I play easy mode and I play to win. I love to die and I like to BRB. All systems checked out. Group up with me. 2 to the 1, to the 1, to the 3. I'm here to party. GG. A giant gorilla can keep up with me. You can't be serious.